Fans, we are back live with another edition of the Cheap Heat Productions Wrestling Podcast. My name is Jack Kilby, Executive Vice President of Great North Wrestling, and we are pleased tonight to have on a man who made his mark definitely in the wrestling business in several organizations, WCW, WWF, and TNA, and is from a legendary wrestling family. Of course, I'm talking about Erik Watts. But before we get into a discussion with Mr. Watts, I have to throw to Mr. Cheap Heat himself, Morris Shorthall, all the way over in Ireland.
Thank you very much, Jack, and thank you very much, Erik. Really looking forward to talk to you today. I know we're tight for time, and we'll get into why later on, but we're going to kick into this interview now.
Let's do it, my friend. Do we say hello from across the pond or anything if you're in Ireland too?
Yeah.
All right.
We say sláinte. Cheers.
Cheers.
I'm not drinking beer tonight though. Just Lucozade tonight. Just FYI.
Okay, it's all right. I'll drink for you.
Do.
Erik, just in terms of before we get into the minutia of your career, you made your debut at an early age in WCW. If you could just give the fans a Reader's Digest version of how that came about, that would be appreciated.
As fast as I can say it, I wasn't planning on pro wrestling. The way I was raised is you had to get your college degree before you got in the ring. We did everything. All the Watts kids did everything from sweeping the arenas to putting up the rings to selling merchandise to lights to transporting talent to catering to light show, camera, everything. But we were not supposed to get in the ring to learn the ring. And that was something my mom and dad came up with because my father, he went to the Houston Oilers and then knocked out the coach and then went to Indianapolis Colts to Minnesota. And that's where him and Vern met, okay? So he left before he got his degree. My mother came over from Estonia. Russia took over, and so they escaped the country and lived in deportation camps in Bremen, Germany for 7 years before coming to Oklahoma. After high school, she went into modeling. That's how they re-met in Madison Square Gardens. He saw her on a poster and told one of the boys, "I know her," and the guy died laughing. They got back together, and here we are. So the reason why I'm telling you this is I was raised as an entrepreneur. I had my own dreams. I loved pro wrestling. I love pro wrestling. I knew all the business and other businesses as well. Both parents entrepreneurs. However, what I had set up was I was thinking, okay, do I go pro football? And I had not started but one season. The guy prior to me, two guys prior to me, John Gruden, which became the Washington Redskins head coach and coach, his brother Chucky, which is in a little trouble with the NFL right now, right? So great football family. Then the quarterback then before me was Browning Nagel. He went first pick, second round to New York Jets. Then me, then Jeff Brom. So the pros loved my height, loved my arm strength, but only having so much film to watch me, I wasn't going to go first, second, third round. So I was going to go in the lower rounds. But by the time I was done with football, I was kind of tired of the politics of it per se. So when I had finished my football season, I did call my father and I said, "Hey, Dad, I'm in Louisville. Do you know someone around Louisville, around Nashville, around Atlanta that would let me get in a ring?" I got about 3 weeks off of school. I was 3 classes left in my master's of business. And he said, "Yeah, the Masked Assassin, Jody Hamilton, has a school south of Atlanta. Let me give him a call." So I went down there. I was there 23 days. On my way back, Dusty Rhodes asked me, "Hey, son, why don't you have a match?" And frankly, Tennessee, I'm saying, like, "Sir, I don't even really, I've only been in the ring 23 days, period." And he goes, "Okay." I'm like, "But 23 days?" He goes, "Okay." He goes, "But don't you want to see what it feels?" I said, "Heck yes." So it was on the way back to Louisville anyway. So it was hilarious. I won't bore you guys. I had boots made just to be in the ring with boots. Then I cut off my football shorts. And so then I wrestled. After that, Grizzly Smith said, "Hey, Dusty wants to talk to you." Dusty said, "Hey, you want to run this back? I believe in Chattanooga. I said, absolutely, I want to do it again. School's not till Monday. Did it. The same thing. Hey, Dusty wants you to talk to him. Called Dusty, goes, I believe he goes, we're Nashville. That's on your way back to Louisville. I said, heck yeah, brother. And after that, he said, what was it like? I said, Dream, I got to be honest with you. My first college start was sold out, Ohio State in the Horseshoe, 100,000+ people, ESPN. I played against Syracuse in the Tokyo Dome, sold out. I've been to many unbelievable events. I have never felt anything like what I felt in front of those fans. And we're not talking about Madison Square Garden, Franklin, Tennessee, whatever. And I said, he goes, you're screwed. I go, what's that, sir? He goes, you'll never be able to find another business, a drug, an airplane, a rocket. You'll never feel that again, my brother. You are screwed. He goes, so you need to come back to me tomorrow. I said, sir, I got class. He goes, no, you don't. You got a contract with WCW, and we're going to tape TV, because we did Saturday Night Live, even though it said Saturday Night Live, was actually taped on Mondays. And at that time, that's before the big wars. And so my 23rd, 24th day in the ring was on TV. And so that's what happened. And when that happens, my fiance, I said, I think we're moving to Atlanta. She goes, what are you talking about? I still got to finish out one semester. So that's what I'm telling you. I went back to the Ramada Hotel south of the airport, and I stayed there, and I wrestled. And the next thing you know, my first year, I did 307 matches. And I'm talking to you guys. I don't even know how in the hell I got here.
That was a pretty quick summary, and I think maybe on a normal show, maybe some other time we can get into that in more detail, because I reckon there could be an hour story in there alone. So,
hey, anything you guys want, I would love a rematch. So you guys bring me back for whatever you want.
Yeah. So look, we'll throw a few maybe notable names or matches your way then for the next while, and we'll see what kind of memories we can dig up. I have one here. 1992, you wrestled Steve Austin. What was he like to work with?
So at that time, he was part of the Hollywood Blondes, Stunning Steve Austin and Brian Pillman. And he was a very confident person, and his dream, I don't care what anyone wants to say, he wanted to be a pro football player. And I believe he was a fullback or a linebacker. And so he was wrestling. He was so athletic and so inspiring. When I came in, he took everything as a shoot. And so later on, we can tell another story, man. I started a paint company that I sold later on that did millions. And it was because of a conversation, or after a conversation with him. Dustin Rhodes and I were going to face Brian Pillman and Stunning Steve Austin. Well, as a rookie, which back in the day, rookie years were 3 years. And you are to come up to every night you get to the building, you come up and say, hello, sir, my name's Erik Watts. Hello, sir. To the top guys, and if you're really good, all the way down to the jobbers or what have yous. That is the respect. It doesn't matter if you were out at a club the night before hanging out, and we were hanging out, I would still come up and say, hey, guys, how you doing, Erik Watts? And that's the rule, man. Well, before a match, the other rule is that you come up to the veterans and say, hello, Erik Watts, what can I do for you in the match tonight? So here's Dustin Rhodes. He's already got 5 years. Here's Brian Pillman. Here's Steve. I don't really know well. I'm actually in my first month or so into the sport. And I can only imagine these guys are thinking, what dues they paid. But, again, we can talk about dues on another production, because I paid my dues already before I got there. But that's cool, too. And those guys got it because they're athletes. Pillman was a pro football player, Austin. Dustin Rhodes understood. And this is what Steve said to me. He goes, son, I can promise you 2 things. I can promise you an ass whooping, because I'm going to whip your ass, and a brush with success, because you're going to brush up against me and I'm success. And later on, I took a bet that someone bet me I couldn't gross $1 million in any business on a $10,000 loan, and I did it. And so I decided to paint, knew nothing about it, but I was like trying to think, okay, in the yellow pages, you want your company to start with an A, like AAA painting, AA painting, Acme. Couldn't take it. Everyone got it. And I remember that story he said, and I named it Brush with Success, Commercial and Residential Painting. So I'll tell you guys, he was one of the few guys that it didn't matter whether you wrestled 10 minutes or an hour and a half. He in his mind felt he could take you to your limits no matter whom you were, stay with you mentally and physically, no matter who you were. About the third month I was there, there's a saying in the business, when you're the top of the top, you could make a broom look good. And we were at a TV taping one time, and I swear to goodness, he was just messing around. There was probably 10 guys because you got to show up ultra early. So most guys just sitting in the back, making calls, eating, stretching out, getting chiropractors work on you. And there was about 5-10 guys out by the ring, and we were all kind of working out. And he threw a broom into the ring and did about a 5-minute match with the flipping broom, bro. And I was cracking up. And yet he was, I don't know how long had he been in wrestling? 4 years, 5 years, 8 years? Hell, I don't know. But he literally made that broom look incredible. And so talk about confidence. People talk about, oh my gosh, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, Ric Flair, blah, blah, could make a broom look good. This wise guy got in the ring and only in front of 5, 8, 10 guys. So he wasn't doing it to say something. He was just doing because he ate and breathed and dreamed pro wrestling success his whole time. And if you guys followed his career, brother, believe it or not, we can talk about this again. He left WCW and then he went to ECW and he wasn't sure what was going on. Am I going to make it? Am I not going to make it? And then at WWE, when he first got there, he wasn't sure. And then $1 Million Man and then Stone Cold and then forget about it. I mean, this guy was already a full-blown forest fire and someone added gas to him. And man, I love that dude. I love him. I love him. And he's as good as they get. So that's what I remember about 92.
As evidenced by this fan question here, talking about you should have won the WCW Television Championship tournament in 92. A lot of folks still remember that, but specifically your run with Regal for the TV championship. What kind of a learning experience was that for you in the ring with such a pro?
Well, okay, so let's go back though. Regal, no one knew who Regal was. Like I got more of an understanding of Regal when I went in 95, 96 on a German tour to take the spot for Vader, I believe it was. Otto Vance brought me in. And, the tours over there at the Catch, they're in a city for 4 or 5 weeks, and it's a totally different wrestling. And believe it or not, I saw some of the greatest athletes I've ever seen, Franz Schumann and Fit Finley, and there's just so many guys over there that weren't over here yet. The guy that I knew from England was Lord Steve Casey that wrestled for my father, and he was kind of PO'd that Regal was using Lord Steve Regal. And I laughed, but all due respect, I said, so I guess you're the only English guy that had the Lord gimmick. So, but that didn't go over well with him either. So, when he came over here, he was just a guy that wanted to make it in the United States, and no disrespect to anybody, but he was taking over this chain wrestling, I'm a shooter gimmick, like I'm a tough and I'll kill you. And I think him and I had very good respect because I'm over here making a name, he's coming to make a name. We treated each other with most respect. But let me just say this: when you're in a ring with a shooter, you know who can shoot and who can't. And so, I think one of the greatest stories there are is, the Steve Regal, because I'm not saying one way or the other, but there are so many people that were afraid of him compared to so many people being afraid of Rick Steiner, Steve Dr. Death Williams, people that not only beat you up in the ring, but would knock out someone in the back, and you saw it. This guy, this guy had a notoriety that he built about himself without any scene action per se. And I love Steve, man. His gimmick in the ring and in back and everywhere else. And to this day, he has always treated me with nothing but respect, and I love him, and I have respect for him. But if you're asking me, so you're talking about two guys. I don't know him, he doesn't know me, but we have a respect, and I think the respect was, you know, in England and those places, you learn chain wrestling, you learn grappling, and that's not necessarily the way you learn it over here. Yet we have some incredible grapplers, Kurt Angle and Brock Lesnar and the Steiner brothers and Cowboy Bill Watts, and let me stop, right? So you had a whole bunch of grapplers, but when grapplers get in with grapplers or submission artists or things like that, there is kind of a different respect. You know, like when Shamrock came, Shamrock got respect by the boys because the boys that were shooters understood he was a shooter coming from the UFC, and so they didn't. Now, I don't care what anyone says now, but I don't think they were upset about any push or not push compared to some of the people they pull off TV and they come up there and they make a world champion of. You know, it's a completely different show. So thank you to the fan that said, hey, I should have been the TV world champ. You know, you ask me now, I guess I should have been. I would have liked it. But realistically, man, I was just so amazed that I was getting to step my foot into a sport in which I have in my DNA. It fed me as a child. It fed my children, and I can't say too much, but you know, there may be a third generation coming out pretty soon at the highest level that has a Watts name that I may be kin to. So it's a generational thing, maybe.
Excellent news. You worked a pretty extensive house show program. I think it was in 1993 with one Chris Benoit. What was he like in the ring? What you learned from him, and what was he like outside the ring?
Dude, I can't, like, it's hard not to get emotional. That cross-face crippler. I mean, dude, oh my gosh, he was so ahead of his time. And my father, you know, because he had Oklahoma and Louisiana and Mississippi and Arkansas and Georgia championship runs, he understood demographics. So my father, way back were bringing in Guerreros and you know, he was bringing in the Russians, and depending on the political atmosphere. So you see this guy that you can tell knows and loves the sport and eats and breathes it. And I remember him coming up. One night we were getting ready to go out and wrestle, and he literally was kicking the cinder block wall of wherever we were at, the Atlanta Dome or whatever. And when I say he was kicking the dog shit out of this wall, I'm like, he's going to kick the brick. And he was warming up, and I said, hey, big guy, I hope you don't do that with me out there. And he goes, brother, you got to warm up like it's a street fight. And literally that was his face. And that's how he was in the ring. And then all of a sudden, when he popped out, the kindest guy in the world. Matter of fact, when I went to Germany, it was Franz Schumann and Finley's and these guys that knew that me and Benoit were friends. They stayed in communication, and Benoit told them, this kid's the true deal. Like, he wants to learn. And that helped afford me, because I always went up to anyone I could and said, hey, could we train today, or would you show up? Now, most of your guys don't want to show up 6 hours early to kayfabe train with someone. Bro, I didn't come to wrestling to get a check. I came to wrestling just like I came to football. I wanted to be a Heisman Trophy winner. I wanted to win the national championship. I did not do either, but I dadgum prepped for that way. I didn't want to be Hulk Hogan or Cowboy Bill Watts. I wanted to be bigger than. I was never bigger than Hulk Hogan or Cowboy Bill Watts. But that's the way I trained. And Benoit, this guy that I worked with and knew, he blesses me when I'm there, because we were just all talking, and they go, hey, so you and Chris friends? I go, why? We're talking to Chris, and he found out you're over here in Germany, and he said, take care of you. And I said, so does that mean we can work out? And I literally had the best of the best guys coming down and working out in the flipping ring with me. And that got me heat with a lot of people. They're like, who's this guy? Well, first of all, bro, I had a lot of heat with a lot of guys because I asked. I'd go to Harley Race or Sting or Steiner or it didn't matter who, and say, hey, if you're in the town early tomorrow, they set the ring up around noon. Well, would you go wrestle? Because everyone else was going to a school and stuff. Remember, I had 21 days or 23 days in the school. I had to learn. I had keys to the gym. Every day that I had off, beat up or not, when I got back to Atlanta, I went to the school because, man, I had to catch up. I had to catch up, guys.
Guardian of Chaos is asking if you have any experience traveling with the Freebirds.
Okay, so it's kind of crazy, right? You know, my first stint over to Japan was actually due to the fact that Terry Gordy OD'd on the flight over. And thank God he did not die. My experience with the Freebirds were as a young person working for my father, and like so in the summer we would get in the van a lot of times and load it down with t-shirts and either put up the rings and sell things, or backstage if there was a double shot between Oklahoma City and Tulsa, and the show was going longer in Oak City. My father may say, "Hey guys, wait for the main event, pull them down to Tulsa or pull the mid card or whatever," and that's how they fed them. So my time around those gentlemen were more as a behind the scenes, watching their greatness. You know, I was there when they came and asked my dad for one of the largest contracts ever, and my dad promoted it. You know that he did it, and my brother Joel, that was so genius with music videos. You know, doing Backstreet USA and so many things. So that was, that was Michael Hayes. He has always treated me with all respect, and he lives outside of Atlanta, and he's always been good to me and treated me like almost like a son, not a brother. Gordy treated me like a brother. You know, and I can go on. So, but I can't say. I believe they know how brutal my dad was as a promoter and a wrestler and this, that, and the other. So I think they had a respect. You know, there's a lot of guys that would sit there and say, "Hey, you don't have to prove anything to us because he's unbearable on the road." I just don't even know how you could you live around him, and that would be kind of a joke, right? So, but they also saw how hard my father pushed all of us kids. He treated us. My dad was probably tougher on us kids than a lot of talent, and most of the people that will say if you ran the Mid-South Sports, he was the hardest promoter ever. But now I've heard a lot of things about the Lion's Den, and I've heard a lot of things about Gagne's, and I've heard a lot of things about Graham's as well. So I'm not disrespecting. I never got to be under the rule of Stu Hart per se. So I'm sure there's a lot of hammers out there, but I do understand, you know, of my time, all the years I've been around, Jerry Jarrett pulled me around and said, "Your father is the greatest promoter and greatest period of all times." And he goes, and even Vince Jr. would say, Vince Sr. definitely said it. And he said, you know, and he goes, "Oh my God, your dad's a hammer." You know, and that's coming from a Jerry Jarrett where I'm wrestling up there at TNA, you know, and we're just sitting out at the ringside talking old stories. Matter of fact, I took a picture with Jerry at an autograph session in Charlotte a few years ago, right before he passed on. And so Jerry was a mentor. I was blessed, you know, so Jerry was a mentor to me, you know, and it meant a lot to me. So, Freebirds, I watched them and I was around them a lot, but no, I wasn't like a Doc or a Sting or a Steiner that was on the road with them in the heyday of their heyday. No, I wasn't that guy. I was too young.
Erik, I was just wondering how you ended up in the WWF in '96, and did you ever have any interactions with Vince Jr.?
Yeah. Vince and I had phenomenal relationship. And how I ended up there was I needed to stay learning, and the way I was raised to learn was move territories, right? And so, but you know, it was amazing when I called that. You know, I thought, hey, I would like to come to WWE. I'm leaving WCW. My perception was that if you wrestled at WCW, they knew of you, watched you, blah, 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 blah. And they're like, "Sure, let's negotiate." And they're like, "That's not how it works." I go, "So how does it work?" They go, "You got to try out." And I'm like, what am I trying out? Like, you've seen my TV, and they're like, no, you try out. And so they got me to try out in Augusta, and I went and tried out. And Vince, as soon as I came through that curtain, because I hadn't seen Vince since he was much younger. My dad was big on territories and making sure whether you like the territory or not. My father was huge on trying to tell the territory owners, be smart. We gotta push talent around and stuff like this. So yeah, you might be treading on my territory and I might be treading on yours, but guys, we got to create talent, and we got to, yes, we're in competition. Competition brings success, but let's just not turn our backs on everybody, right? And so Vince's dad would occasionally send Vince down some TV tapings or whatever to do intros. And that's how I was like, Dad, I said, who's that? And they go, that's Vince's son. And he would be there. So now, by the time I got there, it was, Vince's mega territory and all this. But, Vince treated me with incredible respect. And years later, they wanted to get rid of my partner, got rid of my partner, and then they offered an extension to my agreement. And when I first met Vince, I said, Vince, I got to be honest with you. If I'm ever unhappy at your territory, can I leave? And he said, yes. And then I told a few people that, and they laughed. Like, that's not what Vince does. He'll sit you at home and you'll broke on your minimum or whatever. Vince. And I'm like, all I know is the guy that told me what he told me. And so I literally called and asked for my release. And so what they did is they said, hey, can we send you a new contract and the release? Vince said, and I said, yes, sir. And he sent it to me, and the new contract was phenomenal. But I also talked to him, and it was going to be 3 or 4 months to repackage me and songs and trademark. People don't know how much money and how much time it really takes back then to put someone new on TV. It's the trademark, the name, it's the outfit, it's the music, it's everything that has to be right. Forget just can you wrestle, everything else. So he sent it, and I should never have looked at the agreement, and I was like, ugh. But I signed I asked for my release, and it was because, guys, remember this. I'm coming in 1992, end of 92, Pro Wrestling Rookie of the Year. I'm hitting 300, 305 days, 307 days, and blah, blah, blah. How in the hell are you going to be a legend? How are you going to be the best? How are you going to be the biggest? By sitting around collecting a check. You got to have ring time, and you just can't have ring time at a flipping, I'm going to go to the power plant. Bull. No, you got to be in front of people, and you got to be against incredible people, or putting time in the ring. There's a difference between working out, and you could work out 8 hours in a ring and have a 10-minute match, and all of a sudden that 10-minute was 400 times in the flipping ring, right? Guys, because stuff happens, and I tell people all the time, your brain's got to go, and then all of a sudden you get hurt, or you take a bad bump, or you're tired and your legs are weak, or you're dizzy. Man, that's when you still have to call a spot and remember a spot and know a spot, know where you're at, and listen to the fans. Now, it's different today, per se, right? But you're calling stuff out there in the ring, man. A lot of people don't even know, and this happened to me a few times. My dad was famous for go out and give me 20 minutes, the ref will tell you who's winning. and the reason he would do that is he would go, if you got people sometimes that forgot what an honor it was to win, a lot of times what people would do is they would make their opponent look bad because they felt so good about, they knew they're going to win. And my father's rule to me all the time was, if you go out there and make people look like crap, then if you just beat crap, who are you, the king of crap? And I'm like, that makes sense. He goes, so if you go out there and make everyone you wrestle look like they have some talent, or they may have an edge, or they may have a move, or they may have something, when you beat that person, you actually beat someone. And that art got lost quite often. And I can understand why. You're on the road, blah, blah, blah. You got 5 minutes, you're going over. I'm going to beat you. And then guess what? Then I'm just going to pin you. Your mind is like, next, you're a jobber, or you're a this, or you're a that. Ricky the Dragon the Steamboat and Steve Austin and Jake the Snake Roberts, and I can keep on going, Flairs. Man, go back and watch some of their matches. Like, you're like, Rip Rogers, he looked like he was a world champion. You know, he's got glitter on himself. He's got his hair done. And, you know, and you're like, what? Bob Cook. Every one of the veterans, anytime they got a job, an enhancement job with Bob Cook, they made sure with his beautiful punch that he was going to catch you, and they were going to sell the crap out of it. Then I saw other guys that were mid-card guys, and they were facing Bob Cook, and then they made Bob look like whatever. You know, like Bob Cook had one of the greatest punches of all time in pro wrestling, and the vets, they look forward to put over that punch, right? So it's a different art, it's a different mentality, and the people that got it, the people that didn't. So guys, I wasn't going to learn from staying at home. It's not like, shit, I would have loved to stay at WCW like Sting did for X number of years, making huge money, but Sting didn't start there. You know, by the time Sting started there, you know, and so that would be nice. I was not in that position, guys. I was coming out of college with a degree and 3 classes of my master's left, and I had to catch up for all the guys that started out at 17, 18 years old running territories. That's what I had to do.
Well, Erik, we're running low on time, but we've got time for a one fan question that I was going to ask you about your ECW experience.
Right. So ECW was kind of a thing in which it was going to be short. I knew it, you know, Paulie knew it too. And maybe if we come back, we could talk about it, but then I had to shorten it. Loved ECW when I came. Turnbuckle Championship Wrestling, okay? Dusty's place. So I was doing, Dream would say, hey, baby, if you will, would you come down and wrestle some shows? And then would you come and coach at my school when you can? I said, yes, sir. And so I did. And then I would go do some shows in Barry Windham. And, you know, everyone wanted to go pay the legend the respect. So one day, Dusty said, hey, baby, let's go down and watch a ECW. They're at Center Stage. I'm like, they're in Atlanta? He's like, yeah. I said, I've only seen him every once in a while. You know, I used to have my wife tape it every once in a while just to watch what was going on because, I never saw it. I would never seen it, home. I was always on the road and stuff. So when I got there, actually, Paul Lee and I got along very well, but Paul Lee hated my dad because my dad fired him, but my dad fired him because he was rigging the receipts. And my dad said, you are the smartest dumbass I've ever met. Like, you are such a mental, like, you have such good mental capacity, and I love you, but you must be bored because you do stupid stuff that I will not happen. So it's kind of a weird thing. And so I went down because Dream said, jump in the truck. I got some cold ones. Because I was leaving the school. I didn't even know ECW was in town. And we drove up, and all the next thing you know, there's Raven. I'd never met Dreamer, blah, blah, blah. But there's Raven. I knew Raven. And there's Paul Lee. Of course, I know Paul Lee. And Dreamer came up to me and goes, Erik Watts, what are you doing here? I'm like, well, Dream asked me. He goes, well, I mean, are you going to wrestle? I go, well, what the hell you mean am I going to wrestle? I said, I didn't even know guys were down. He goes, hey, tonight at the end of my match, can you come like just beat the hell out of me and leave me laying in blood? I'm like, what are you talking about? I just came to say hi, but sure. And then the next thing you know, at the end of the show, they had me run in and beat the heck out of it. And so then Paulie was like, hey, man, I got to have you. And so I said, we can work out some stuff. So we talked about it and we worked some stuff out. And then what ended up happening is they would bring me in and then not work me because there was so much chaos in the back between Raven and Dreamer and Sandman that the territory was very small, meaning, it was very cool. It was but I'm saying it's not like Vince. The top 5 to 15 guys have Paulie's ear. So now these guys are cutting each other out from under who gets to wrestle Erik Watts. Listen, guys, I'm not making myself out to be that big a deal, but I mean, they're like, we all want to wrestle Erik. And it was perfect in ECW because I'm going to come in hated because of being Erik Watts, Cowboy Bill Watts' son. And so when I had already had a deal with Ted DiBiase had a federation that was coming up where we were doing the films and canning them. And I did not know this until we did a few weeks of film that he made me the champion. So when I went, I had to call Ted DiBiase and say, sir, you know, you haven't sold these shows yet. I still need to stay on the road. And he said, let me talk to Paulie. So then we called Paulie. He said, Paulie, he cannot lose. And Paulie's like, well, we'll figure it out. And so he actually finally went to pay-per-view, didn't use me. Pay-per-view didn't use me. Now we're Philly for ECW. He did the old deal where I was in a trunk of a car and no one knew I was coming in. And that's when he came up and he said, we did a promo and the people were going crazy. And the kid that I love, the blonde kid that's so damn good, the Carino. No, right. No. Spike that beats everyone on the first match. So Paulie comes into me and goes, bro, this is just everyone, Cactus Jack, Austin, anyone that comes in has to be beat by him. I said, well, you know the deal between you and Ted DiBiase. And he goes, so what are we going to do about it? I said, you know what? Why don't we go out to do the match? And he walks in and does his shit, and they never ring the bell. And he goes, what? I go, I'm not a guy that's my ego. I'll job to the kid. I don't care. And he's like, and that's how they did it. And they had him, you know, hit me and then 1, 2, 3, but it never counted because I never lost because the bell didn't ring. But later on, it became a situation as I got to know the guys. And I was very blessed on negotiating my agreements and contracts. I'm in business, guys. But some things started to happen where some of the guys that work so hard weren't getting paid. And then so I kind of made a stand. And then I said, this can't happen. And then all of a sudden, after a few of my last week, my check came in. It wasn't coming in. And I said, I'm not flying out to the pay-per-view, until everyone else is paid, and then me. So then we did some things, and then I got my money and I got my first class tickets, and then I didn't board the plane. I said, I'm sorry. I can't do it. I won't do it. Not for me, not for my family, which is very important. I don't, you know, I've been around these guys for a short period, but they got guys there making $15, $20, setting up the ring and shooting themselves with staple guns and jumping off shit. Like if you can't pay them and take care of them, and again, I'm not throwing anything at anyone. Business is business, but man, Mick Foley, one time, he just paid all the boys one time. He paid all the boys. You know, there was a time with WCW, something went on and some guys got crazy and broke a whole bunch of urinals in a bathroom, man. And there was a top wrestler that came in and said, put that on my American Express. They said it's 50,000. He goes, put it so it doesn't get back to the office. You know, like guys like that do that, that's the true thing. Let's stick together. Now, we can take care of things in the back, right? We can take care of things in the dressing room, you know, but we got to stick together. So that was a short run, but I wasn't ever going to be there long anyway. But, man, I got to be honest with you, dude, I've never seen anything like it, man. I've never seen anything like it. Those guys gave their lives up, and me and people became good friends. And there's a few people that passed on, and you know, I roomed with one of them right before they died, Sonny's husband, you know, and man, there's some memories I can never do without. And what was crazy is I was done with wrestling due to some injuries, and I had some companies going on, and I was just tired of the Erik Watts thing. You know, I'm like, hey, I'm not going to keep on busting my head to people. You know, I'm not a quitter, but come on, it's exhausting. You know, I got other business, I got other things. I'm doing my thing. You know, if it's that hard, you know, whatever. And that Vince Russo called me up, and I didn't even know Vince other than the interview he did with me at WWE. Asked me to come up and check out TNA. I'm like, nah. And he goes, come on. I go, nah. He goes, please. I go, okay. I didn't know 90% of the talent there. And so I sat up in their little perch and watched, and I almost had tears down my eyes. I was like, this reminded me of ECW. This reminded me of places where everyone was just coming for a chance. And these were smaller guys, and they were screaming, hey, WWE, you don't want small people. Hey, WCW, you don't want small people, but we can work. We can work. And I watched these guys tear the house down on pay-per-view, and I said, where can I sign, man? And I was in there in an instant. So So ECW has a special place, guys, and I'm not talking bad. I'm just stating facts. That's why I try to tell people all the time. It's not a bad or good thing if you're not talking bad or good, if you're just stating facts, and that's just the facts, guys.
Yeah. We're running out of we're running out of time here now, Eric, but we're definitely going to do this again because you got some great stories and we kind of go into more detail on them. It's 6:45 p.m. right now. You come
Yes,
from a
sir.
sporting background. Your
Yeah,
daughter
yeah.
is a big sports star, turned into a big sports star over there. Tell the fans what you're
Yes.
doing directly after this.
Right after this, my daughter's at the Naval Academy. She's in cybersecurity. This is her senior year. She led the team in scoring last year. She's up there this year. She's a 6'1", just rocking model. Both hands, shooting, dribbling, the whole thing, and she just got it's commissioned into the Marines, which that's what she was pulling for. But you have to be accepted in the Marines. She's Marine ground, cybersecurity. She is a 6'1" killer. When I say that, her education level is crazy. By her senior year, she had already completed like 23, 24, 25 hours of college. She had like a 4.5 going. She is incredible. There are rumors that woman, the WNBA and other people are looking, but you got to get 5 years afterwards. But there are some sneaky rumors, guys, that we need to watch out, because it seems like there's people interested in her being like maybe into wrestling, and I can't confirm or deny, because she is at the military, and the military, she works for the government. But that's what kind of athlete she is, and on her days, I wear her Naval Academy. I get jacked up. I tell her, I tell her all the time. I'm like, baby, I don't know if you're warm for the game. I text her. I'm like, but I've got a full sweat. I'm stretching out my hamstrings, my shot, because let me tell you, I don't allow anyone around me. I got to close my house down. The screaming and the yelling. She goes, Dad, sometimes I can hear you yelling from your house. So that's the only reason, guys, that's the only reason I had to cut it short, is I got about 14, 15 minutes for the game. And I got to get ready. Like, I got to suit up. I got to get ready for the game. Hey, now listen,
Awesome, man.
my girlfriend keeps on busting my butt about going to Ireland. So does that mean that we got like a place to stay with you? I mean, are you gonna show us around if we come to Ireland?
Definitely, man. Definitely. I'll bring you to the best bars with the best Guinness and the best whiskey.
That's all I'm saying. And of course everyone's gonna say that Conor, right? Because anyone from Ireland knows Conor McGregor, right?
Yeah, I still haven't been to his bar. Maybe when you come over.
All right, we'll do whatever, man. Guys, please, if you ever want a second edition, third edition, it would be my blessing.
Absolutely.
We'll
Thank
definitely be in
you.
contact.
Thank you very much for your time, Eric, and we'll definitely take you up on that. And good luck with the game. We'll get an update on her progress next time.
Sorry for being a little late, guys. That never happens, but sorry for being late. That's so inappropriate. But, man, I had a blast.
Enjoy yourself, man. Get off this thing. Go on. Go enjoy yourself.
Have a great one, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, fans, that's it for a brief but really engaging edition of the Cheap Heat Productions Wrestling Podcast. We'll definitely have Erik on again.
What a character.
Yeah, excellent interview. I've had the pleasure of speaking to him before, and he never disappoints. So we will keep you updated with that in terms of scheduling and all the great stuff we have coming, including we'll be back live tomorrow with another edition of the well-vaunted Mario Mancini show. Should be a good one. Well, fans, that's it, and see you soon.